where we're going to start putting all that theory into practice with some practical stretches. And we're going to start with the lower legs. And remember that we want to be bringing all those concepts that we learned in video 1 into this, being mindful about what your goals are, where you're directing those stretches, and therefore how long to hold them. But let's dive straight in. Now, some of these you'll be familiar with, but I'm also going to point out some of the things that people do wrong that mean that the stretches that they think they're doing for a certain thing are not really actually working for them. And calves are actually quite a common one for dancers to get wrong. And of course, it's an area that we get a lot of problems with. You might get strains of these muscles, might also get cramping. So calves are quite a common area for getting cramp. Okay, so let's start with regular common or garden stretch for the gastrocnemius muscle. So remember, if you go back to your anatomy, go and watch the ankle video and see those muscles, and you'll see that that's the outer layer of the calf muscle. Because it also crosses your knee joint, this muscle, it starts above the knee, crosses your knee joint and your ankle joint because it becomes your Achilles tendon that hits the heel bone. We need to stretch this one with a straight knee. So we're going to take up the typical lunge position. We're going to have 2 views for you so you can see what's going on. Now, we're going to be mindful of one of the things that dancers often do, and it's typically our ballet ladies and gents that like to do it. Yeah, they have that back foot turned out, even just slightly turned out. Can you feel a calf stretch with your back foot turned out? No. So we need to make sure that we've got both feet absolutely parallel. One of the other issues that people have with this is that they bend their back forwards and go, yeah, give myself a good calf stretch there. Can you feel your calf stretching? No. Okay, we need to bring the back up so that the head's over the hips, and then to deepen the stretch, you want to push the pelvis forwards, the lower back forwards. Feeling that sweeten up? Yeah. Okay, now just relax for a moment. Typically, I would get them to do that with the hand against a wall or a chair or the bar, because when you're standing in space, the muscles, if you're not balanced by holding on to something, the muscles are actually a bit active in order to balance you. You can't really really deeply stretch a muscle that is already contracted trying to balance you. So just a finger on a wall, a chair, a bar, whatever, will help your brain route your stabilization through the hand and allow you to relax more into that calf stretch. Okay, so that was the outer layer of the calf muscle. Underneath that, we've got the deeper muscle called the soleus muscle. Now, this is the one that tends to get into trouble with dancers. Most of the calf strains that I see clinically are in this deeper muscle. And it's often, I mean, it works very hard, this muscle. It helps us jump and catches us when we land. But also, people don't know to stretch it. A lot of people know how to do that stretch, but they're not then doing the deeper soleus stretch. So we're going to be in the same position for this one. So being mindful again that that back foot is not rotated. But for this one, we're actually going to bend the back knee. Okay, so we're shifting the weight back. You can have the front leg straight or you can have it bent. It doesn't really matter. We're focused on the back leg. Now, one of the things people do wrong with this one is they often bend forwards with their back. And again, are you feeling a stretch in your back leg? No, that's giving you a hamstring stretch on your front leg rather than a calf stretch on your back leg. So we want to make sure that the head is actually over that heel. So you could even move your whole body weight if you shift back, 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 back. So you're right over that foot, yeah, and drop down. Does that feel stronger for you now? Yeah, a little stronger. Are you feeling it in your bones? Okay, let's come out of that. So, come out of that stretch for you. So again, this is a good example of how it's not good for everybody. That stretch, some people feel it, some people don't. As she was saying, if she could feel it more in the joint rather than in the muscle itself, then we can find different ways to do it. So another way to do that, well, we can, for the gastrocs muscle, that outer layer, we can use a tilt board if you have such a thing. So here we're going to stand up on the board there, and this is doing the stretch for you. I'm giving you a stabilizer. She's got very small feet and it's a very tilted board, so come off there. So you can use that to, if you have something that's tilted at an angle like that, that's nice and stable. Make sure you're not trying to do things on wobbly surfaces. And you can do it on one leg, you can do it on both legs. What you can also do with this one is if you're up against a wall, you can actually flex your foot and have your toe up against the wall. If you flex your foot up towards me, and I'll pretend to be a wall for you. So if I'm your wall here, and then you can actually push your body weight forwards, just keeping your back straight, but yeah, just kind of come up into it there. Well, this is why we need to be holding on to something. And then if you bend your knee, the front knee, that'll get into that soleus muscle as well, yeah? So you can use that up against a wall to get a little bit more purchase on that muscle. Bear in mind, these muscles take about 8 times your body weight every time you land from a jump. It's quite hard to get a lot of force through it to stretch those muscles out. If they're tight, I really recommend you get your hands in there and loosen them up. And we'll show you that when we're in the sitting position. But before we sit down, we're going to look at a muscle on the front of the lower leg. This is called your tibialis anterior muscle that runs down the front of the shin slightly to the outside. You all know you've got that kind of sharp bit of your shin bone there. That's the one that you bang into coffee tables and things if you're anyone like me. And it's just to the outside of that, and it runs down the front of the shin. Now again, notoriously difficult muscle for dancers to stretch. If you look at regular stretch books or stretch videos for the general population, what they'll tell you to do for this one is to put the foot behind you in a sickled position and then kind of plie into it. Can be useful if it's very, very tight. Most dancers don't feel a stretch in that position, and what it will do is it actually kind of cranks you into those ligaments. And remember that we've just talked about don't stretch into your ligaments because they're going to get potentially become lax and unstable. So I don't really recommend that one for dancers. We can do something that's called an active release. So remember back in the first video, we looked at that active release technique where we're actually going to use our hands to release the muscle in an active motion. Therefore, we're contracting and stretching the muscle at the same time, which gives it a little bit more power behind it. So if we pop ourselves down onto the floor for this one, and what we're going to do is straighten the front leg out. Now, this muscle runs all the way down and into the front arch of the foot. What we want to do is put some hand pressure on that muscle. And the muscle itself starts about where you are, about a third of the way up the shin. Below that is just tendon. You don't need to be on that bit. You want to be on the bit where you can feel it's a bit squishy. And you're going to press the muscle down to the bone. Have the foot in a relaxed position or even a slightly flexed position. Press the muscle down to the bone and then pull it up towards you. So you're putting a little traction through the muscle. Then you're going to point the foot and then take it into an inverted or sickled position. Good. And then release. And then you're going to come up a little bit higher. Press in, pull up, point, and sickle. Feeling that? Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a good one. Then come, and the muscle goes all the way up to just below your knee here, so you can work your way up with that one, point, and for in turn in the foot there. So we're working up that, so it's an active release for that tibialis anterior, much better than cranking our foot into a twisted position. Okay, next set of muscles we're looking at are the peroneal group, which are on the outside of the shin, running down that fibula bone on the outside here. So again, you can't kind of break your ankle enough to try and stretch these muscles. We need to find another way. Now, they're part of this lateral chain up the side of the leg here. So remember when we're looking at fascia, lots of things are shared within compartments of fascia. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the fascia video, and you will. So we can actually do a stretch that will take that whole lateral chain into play. And if you are particularly tight in these peroneal muscles, which is why you want to stretch them, you're likely to feel this stretch focus into that area if it's tight for you. So this is one where we're going to lie on our back. I'm going to get out of your way. And we're going to take one leg up to the ceiling and then take it across the body. And when we get there, just slightly kind of sickle the foot up. Are you feeling that stretch into the that perineal area? So for most people, that one will hit the spot. Plus, it's giving you a nice stretch up through the outside of the leg, the rib cage, and even up into the pec muscle at the top. So we can do a nice combination stretch with that position. Okay. Thank you. So what we'll do now is look at an active release for that one. So we can also use a ball for, there we go, one for you, to release this. So this is more of a, what we call an inhibition technique, where we're putting direct pressure in a spot, a bit like acupressure, and we're going to put pressure on one spot and then move up to another spot, move up to another spot, and release the whole muscle group. We can do this in a little bit of a, we want the front leg at sort of 90 degrees here, and then you're going to pop the ball. Again, similar to the tibialis anterior, the muscle starts just about halfway up. So again, you don't want to be pressing it into the bone, lower down. Bring it up so that it's in that sweet spot. Pop the ball under there, and then you can just drop your body weight forwards. And again, you can modify how much pressure you put through that. Remember, we don't want to be in pain. We want to be just in that sweet spot, going, oh, okay, just feeling it, and then hang out there. You want to hold this one with a ball for a maximum of about 20 seconds in each spot. Don't go hell for leather. This is a small muscle that's shallow. If you really press into it, you could end up bruising it. And then we can move, once we've done that spot, you can move it up a little bit, and then take it up to the next spot, and hang out there. And often you'll find that there are particular areas you're like, ooh, that's the spot, right? The other bit wasn't too bad, this is the spot, so we can focus a little bit more on that area that was particularly tight. Now you can roll yourself a little bit further forwards if you come up on your elbows and get that tibialis anterior in this position with a ball as well. So if you weren't able to feel that active release stretch, is that one getting it for you? Yeah. This is another way to get it. There are so many ways to get at these things. You just have to be inventive and understand the anatomy, and then you can improvise around until you find a method that hits the spot, because everybody's different. Okay, let's take the balls out of play for a moment, and we're just going to now, whilst we're sitting on the floor, look at a bit of a release for the foot muscles. Now, there are many, many intrinsic muscles of the feet. If you go and look at the Meet Your Feet video, you'll see that there are layers of muscle. Even in this tiny area between the sole of your foot and the arch of your foot, there are lots of layers of muscles. And how often do we stretch these guys? And how often are we shoving them in narrow shoes and gripping with our feet and creating tension? And they are hard to stretch, but we've got muscles that run between our long metatarsal bones here, and they kind of pull the toes towards each other. So if you're someone that gets yelled at for gripping, right, the floor, you can get tight in there. They're often the ones that are cramping when you're getting cramping in the foot. So we can actually stretch them out. I mean, one thing you can do is actually run a finger between, so if you go between your big toe and your second toe, and then run your finger up the middle, can you feel that in there? We can just get into a little groove there and find each one. Then you work between the next two and then the next one, so you can work your way through. But a way to get them all together, and this is one that a lot of dancers are familiar with, you're going to take the palm of one hand to the sole of the opposite foot. Okay, it's a bit like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. So opposite hand, palm of hand to sole of foot, and then you're going to thread a finger between each toe. Now, sometimes you have to do a bit of negotiation for this, and it's also interesting to see which of my toes are a bit hard to get, and sometimes you can't even get a finger between your toes. And then once you're there, if you hold around the arch, so have your thumb under the arch, that's it, if you bring that thumb this way, there you go, and then hold it there. Then you can mobilize that front of the foot, so you can get a bit of mobilization of all those tarsal bones and metatarsal bones. You've got 26 bones in your feet, and they need to be able to be pliable and move around each other whilst you're spreading out those toes. Okay, if you just take your hand out from those, sometimes you have to yank it out. Just for a moment, put those feet next to each other. Do you notice a difference between the one just in sensation, between the one you've just treated and the one you haven't? Yeah. What does it feel like? Does it have a... It
feels like there's more space.
More space. Yeah, more air coming through. And what often people feel when they come up to standing is that they've got a bigger footprint, right? So this is about being grounded. If you are working on narrow, tight feet, often it's very precarious. So this is a great thing to do before class, right? It takes 20 seconds to do each foot. It doesn't take a lot of time, but you'll find that you've got a much more stable base. When we're looking at issues like shin splints, calf tension, the more tension there is in the feet, the more we get tension all the way up the chain. So if the feet are nice and spread and grounded, then we're in a lot better state for everything above it. Remember, the feet are the gatekeepers of everything that's above it. So having said that, let's also look at another way to get the feet to soften up a little bit. And we're going back to our balls, so we'll come back up to standing for this one. And we can get those balls under the arch of the foot and then give them a roll around. So there are options here. You can either roll, or what I recommend, particularly if you've got issues with the plantar fascia, go and check out the video on plantar fasciitis if you don't know what that is. If you take the ball more up to the heel end, and then just like we were doing with the perineal muscles, just press and hold, okay? So find one spot, press and hold. The fascia responds a little bit more to that than rolling. And then you can move the ball up a little bit higher, and then press and hold. And you can see that ball's quite nice because it's got spikes, but it's a little squishy, so it doesn't have as much play. So you can get different strengths of ball. Make sure you've got something that's really able to kind of give you some pressure. And then you can come right up to the balls of the feet as well. Those, we also have an arch that goes crossways at the ball of the foot, so it's nice to kind of wake that up there. And also you can do a little roll on that just to get the blood flowing. That's a good thing to do before class. So once you've done that, again, it's always good to compare. Do one foot, then stand on the 2 feet and think, ooh, yeah, I like this one. And actually you can do a stability test. If you stand on the one you haven't done, you're often wobbling around, and you stand on the other one, you're like, oh, that's good, right? So it's quick and easy, and it's protective of everything above it. Okay, so there were some stretches for the lower leg.